prison door closed behind him, and Marcus Reed stood in the cold morning air for the first time in 7 years. No phone, no money, no plan, just a paper bag with everything he owned inside it. He was 31 years old, and the world had moved on without him. Let me take you back to the beginning. Marcus grew up in one of the toughest neighborhoods in New York City. His mother worked 2 jobs. His father was never there. By the time Marcus was 14, he was already making money on the streets. Not because he wanted to, but because the rent was due and the fridge was empty. And nobody in his world was offering him another way out. By 19, Marcus was running his own operation. By 22, he was making more money than anyone in his family had ever seen. He bought his mother a new apartment. He paid for his sister's education. He told himself he was doing the right thing. He told himself he was helping his family. But deep inside, he knew it wouldn't last. It ended on a Tuesday morning. Marcus was 24 years old when federal agents knocked on his door. He didn't run. He just sat down on the couch and waited. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The sentence was 7 years. His mother was in the courtroom when the judge read the verdict. Marcus didn't look at her. He couldn't. Prison changes a man. Not always for the better. But for Marcus, it became the place where everything shifted. In his 2nd year, a corrections officer offered him something unexpected. Access to the prison library. Marcus had never been a reader. But with nothing else to do, he started. Business books, psychology books, biographies of people who had built something from nothing. He read about entrepreneurs who had failed 10 times before succeeding. He read about immigrants who had arrived with nothing and built empires. And for the first time in his life, Marcus started asking a different question. Not, how do I survive? But what could I build? In his 3rd year, Marcus made a decision that would change everything. He started training, not just for himself. He began helping other inmates get healthy. No equipment, no gym, no weights, just body weight exercises, discipline, consistency. Within 6 months, 30 inmates were following his program. Within a year, over 100. The prison warden noticed. He gave Marcus a small space to run organized sessions. And Marcus, a man serving a 7-year sentence, became the most sought-after fitness trainer inside those walls. But more than that, he realized something. He had a system, a program that worked, a method that transformed people even in the worst conditions imaginable. And he started writing it all down. Every exercise, every progression, every principle, in a worn notebook he kept under his mattress. 7 years passed, and Marcus walked out of that prison with his paper bag and his notebook. He had $32 in his pocket. No phone, no credit history, no address. Most employers wouldn't even look at his application. The word felon on a form was enough to close every door. He applied for 40 jobs in his first month. 40 rejections. Some didn't even respond. One interviewer looked at his application, looked up at him and said, "We don't hire people like you." Marcus walked back out onto the street. He stood on the sidewalk, and he made a decision. If no one would give him a chance, he would create his own. Marcus had $32. He had a notebook full of workout programs, and he had one thing that nobody could take away from him. He knew how to transform a human body with zero equipment in the smallest space imaginable. He had proven it. 7 years of proof. So Marcus started outside. Central Park. Early mornings. Free sessions. He put up handwritten flyers on lampposts. Workout with an ex-con. Results guaranteed. Free. The first morning, nobody came. The second morning, one person. A woman named Patricia who had seen the flyer and was curious. Marcus put her through a 45-minute session. At the end, Patricia was on her knees, gasping for breath. Then she looked up at him and said, "Same time tomorrow?" Word spread. Within 3 weeks, 15 people were showing up every morning. Within 2 months, 40. Marcus started charging $10 per session, then $20. Then he rented a small space, a basement in Lower Manhattan. No mirrors, no machines, no fancy equipment, just concrete floors, high ceilings, and Marcus's program. He called it conbody, not hiding from his past. Con as in ex-convict, body as in transformation. The concept was radical. Prison-style workouts for regular people. No equipment, maximum results. And a story behind it that nobody could ignore. A journalist heard about conbody and wrote a small article. The article went viral overnight. Within 48 hours, Marcus had 500 new inquiries. His phone, a cheap prepaid he had bought with his first earnings, didn't stop ringing for 3 days. He had to turn people away. For the first time in his life, people were choosing him. Not despite his past. Because of it. Marcus hired his first employee 6 months after opening. Another formerly incarcerated person. Then another. Conbody became not just a fitness studio, but a movement. A business that deliberately hired people that the rest of the world had rejected. Investors took notice. A venture capital firm offered Marcus his first major investment. He sat across the table from men in suits who had gone to the best universities in the world. And he pitched his idea. In that conference room, Marcus thought about the prison library. He thought about the worn notebook under his mattress. He thought about Patricia on her knees in Central Park. And he didn't flinch. The investors said yes. Within 3 years, conbody had expanded to multiple locations. Corporate clients started calling. Companies like Spotify, Casper, and major banks hired conbody to run wellness programs for their employees. Marcus, the man who had been told, "We don't hire people like you," was now being hired by some of the biggest companies in America. By year 5, conbody was valued at over $50 million. Marcus had been featured in Forbes, the New York Times, and CNN. He had spoken at Harvard Business School. He had sat across from the same kind of people who had once slammed doors in his face, and they were asking him for advice. But here is what Marcus says when people ask him about success. He doesn't talk about the money. He doesn't talk about the magazine covers. He talks about his employees, the people with records who couldn't get a second chance anywhere else, the people who walked into conbody with nothing and walked out with a career. "I didn't build a fitness company," Marcus says. "I built a second chance factory." Here is what Marcus Reed's story teaches us. Lesson 1, your past is not your prison. Marcus spent 7 years behind bars. But the real prison would have been spending the rest of his life letting that define him. Your worst chapter is not your whole story. Lesson 2, constraints create creativity. Marcus had no equipment, no gym, no money. Those limitations forced him to create a system so effective it became his product. What limitations are you facing right now that could become your greatest advantage? Lesson 3, owning your story is your superpower. Marcus called his company conbody. He didn't hide from what he had been. He made it the center of his brand. The world respects people who are honest about where they came from. Lesson 4, your first customer is everything. Patricia, one person, showing up when nobody else did. One customer who believed in Marcus before anyone else. You don't need 1,000 customers to start. You need one, then another, then another. Lesson 5, build something bigger than yourself. Marcus could have built a successful fitness business and stopped there. Instead, he built a movement, a mission, something that gave meaning to every dollar earned. When your business solves a problem bigger than your own bank account, it becomes unstoppable. Lesson 6, the people who reject you are not the judges of your potential. 40 job rejections. One interviewer who said, "We don't hire people like you." Those people were not deciding Marcus's future. They were deciding their own limitations. Never let someone else's closed door become your ceiling. Marcus Reed walked out of prison with $32 and a notebook. He had every reason to give up. Every statistic said he would fail. Every door said no. But Marcus understood something that most people never learn. A closed door is not the end of the hallway. It is just a closed door. And somewhere there is always another way through. He found his way. And if you are sitting somewhere right now, carrying a past that feels too heavy to overcome, I want you to hear this clearly. Your story is not finished. The next chapter has not been written. And no one, no judge, no employer, no statistic, no person who ever turned you away, gets to write it for you. Only you do. If Marcus's story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe to Zentrova Biz, because every week we bring you stories like this one. Stories of people who had every reason to quit and chose to keep going anyway.